In this video, I'm going to explain how to shoot a gig at a small venue like a pub or a club. If you're just getting started with gig photography, it's likely you'll find yourself shooting in smaller venues like pubs, bars and clubs. While there's less scope for those epic stadium shots we all aspire to, this is more than made up for by the intimacy, closeness and access you get with these kind of venues. Cramped conditions, less than perfect lighting and cluttered backdrops all present a challenge. But with a few simple shooting skills and a creative approach to composition, you can get fantastic shots in the smallest of venues. Before the lights go down, it's important to know the rules of the venue, where you can shoot, whether you can use flash, how long you can shoot for, so make sure you know beforehand. Performers won't want the audience distracted by a photographer, and neither will the venue owners, so we remain unintrusive throughout and make best use of the freedoms we're given. While everyone else is focused on the sound, we should be more concerned about the light. Put simply, the quality of your shots depends on the quality of the light falling on the band. It's the light that creates a sense of atmosphere and separates your subject from often cluttered surroundings. Safe to say you'll be close to the limits of your DSLR's low light capabilities, so ISO may need to be pushed up to 1600 or more to get usable shots in the low light environment you'll find yourself in at most venues. Along with the tricky lighting conditions, the other big challenge on a shoot like this is the framing. The aim is to get a clean, uncluttered frame, but in small venues there's often lots of clutter, like the rather annoyingly placed Sky Sports sign here. It helps to frame up with the band members in the foreground and background, and to keep the framing tight so as to minimise that clutter. This is my favourite shot from the shoot, and it was actually captured right at the start of the night during the sound check, when I could move more freely around the venue. Of course, the best angle will depend on the surroundings, but it's worth trying a high shot by holding the camera above the crowd, or a low shot to give the band members that statuesque look. Shooting through the crowd like this can also be a fun challenge, and it captures something of the atmosphere of the night. A lens with a wide maximum aperture is worth its weight in gold on a low light shoot like this. Prime lenses are usually faster than zooms, and while they're not as versatile, their low light performance more than makes up for it in these conditions. A 50mm f1.4 like this, or the slightly cheaper 1.8 version, is a great choice if you're just getting started in gig photography. As for exposure, there's no one perfect setting here, but a good place to start is in manual mode at 1/200th of a second, with aperture at its widest setting, which is f1.4 on the 50mm lens here, and ISO set to auto. This way the ISO will adapt to the lighting conditions, while the shutter speed will stay fast enough to capture the action. It's also worth setting a max ISO. This will be the highest the auto ISO goes to. The limit you choose will depend on how well you think your camera performs at high ISOs. I'm comfortable here at 6400. Often with gig photography, the frame is dominated by areas of darkness punctuated by small highlights. As such, your metering system can be duped into overexposing the scene. Spot metering can be your saviour here. Set your metering to spot, and then while shooting, spot meter on a face or a highlight in order to keep the dark areas dark. When shooting with the aperture wide open, the plane of focus will be very small, so our focusing needs to be precise. I prefer to use my back button for focusing, but whichever method you favour, it's vital to move the focus point over the subject. We can also use live view for focus. This might seem counterintuitive when hand holding, but when the band members stay planted in one spot, it's actually rather useful, as we can zoom in on the live view display and then tweak the focus to make sure they're sharp. Gig photography can be a challenge, but it's also great fun. Not only do you get to see performers up close and personal, you also have the opportunity to capture lively events that really put your gear to the test. Just remember to bring earplugs.